Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and today I have 3 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. This story comes to us from Sign Savings 9270. Print out the internet? Yes ma'am. Let's jump right in. This is about a decade ago, but still well within the realm of the internet. I was a technical writer for the government and had slowly been transferring our old employee handbook, think government bureaucracy from the 1940s, into a modern and actually useful document. Think one page with our policies and links to useful websites, like Office of Personnel Management, forums for workman's comp, etc. My boss wanted the whole thing printed out on her desk the next morning. This was Monday of the Thanksgiving weekend. I printed out the 200 or so pages and just had the links to the various websites in bold. This took about an hour, and I left it on her desk before going home that night. She calls me into her office on Tuesday afternoon and proceeds to yell at me at how stupid I am. Do I think people can just go to a website when it's on paper? No, I need to print everything out. I calmly tell her that these sites are pretty dense and deep, and it would be about 10,000 pages. She says she does not care. It needs to be on her desk, darn it, first thing Monday morning. Mind you, this is now Tuesday, and we usually had some Wednesdays off. I was not really planning to work Thursday, Thanksgiving, or Friday, as I had applied for leave and was looking forward to a nice, relaxing, long weekend. I don't have family, but I had plans. But okay, I asked for and got the request to have everything pertaining to the employee handbook online in a printed format. I also had real work and real deadlines. A bit of context. She was my boss. She did my performance appraisals, and she could make my life miserable and possibly fire me. However, my clients were teams that put together engineering plans, biological assessments, scientific journal articles, reports to Congress, etc. that had real-world deadlines. On some of these, if you missed the publication date, your agency paid $100,000 a day in delay fees. Or you would piss off a congressperson, which is never a good idea. And I was really getting sick and tired of my boss's request that took me away from my actual work. So I was printing and printing all the rest of Tuesday afternoon and then Wednesday. I had to go to the site, print, click on the next link, print, etc. On Wednesday, we got a letter from a Congress critter that was actually important. Had we not gotten that, I might not have done what I did. I got overtime approved pronto to take care of this request, so I did work Thanksgiving. As I was doing that, I kept on printing and printing. I used up every sheet of paper in our 14-story building. I kept on researching the response for the congressional, printing, going to the next floor to carefully get that packet of paper to tuck under the appropriate page, etc. I had paper in about 20 different conference rooms. I could have done the congressional in about 8 hours, but it was not due until Monday, and all of this printing took me a good 24 hours of work. So I put in 32 hours, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Got it done. This is now 2 stacks of paper, each about 6 feet high. I was way under in my estimation of 10,000 pages, as it was more like about 30,000. Remember, I had at least 5 printers going at once for 4 days, etc. I put this in my boss's office, which was already none too clean and pristine. I got written up with a disciplinary hearing and everything. The charge was malicious compliance. I kept my job only because I did have her request in an email. OP added an update to this story. It says, update and explanations. I did not expect this to get more than a few hundred views, so thank you all for reading and being amused. A few explanations from questions in the comments. I kept my job only because. I say that because the boss was very upset and was going to HR demanding that I be put on a performance improvement plan where she could then take her revenge and create other issues that would have gotten me fired. I was probably not in danger of being fired simply for this action, but I was not put on a PIP. I was given a disciplinary letter, So the only actual fallout was that I could not get a bonus. We get $1,000 bonuses if our performance is above average. I would have been okay in a RIF as this is a mild punishment. Yes, the charge actually and literally was malicious compliance. That was what was written on the disciplinary letter. She could not get me on anything else. She had not set any limits. You can only spend X hours, print out X materials, etc. And I had her instructions in an email to print out the handbook and all pertaining information from websites. I do not remember the exact wording. I probably should have kept that all these years, but when I left the government after 3 decades, I pretty much threw out everything. The 2 6-foot stacks were not just the paper printouts. The handbook covered everything and was more of an intranet in itself. I had been working on this project for a long time in my spare time. The handbook covered everything. In short, this was a well-organized intranet where you could quickly find exactly what you needed and no more. I had human resources policies on leave, tardiness, all disciplinary actions, retirement, health insurance, taxes, transfer requests, etc. How to write all types of reports, planning reports, facility review reports, congressionals, etc., along with all templates for the reports, project management and public involvement processes, etc., every position description and how to write performance reviews, award letters, etc., emergency procedures for particular buildings, etc., how to conduct and write a job hazard analysis for any type of work on a facility, etc. There was absolutely no reason to print this out, and my boss never gave me a reason. I had been arguing against printing this for at least a year before my boss gave me the order to even print the 200 pages I had in the first place. These 200 pages each briefly explained the situation, for example, why we do a job hazard analysis, what it should cover, and who should do one, and then gave links, for example, to the Word template you could download and use 2 good examples. So I already had a lot of material that I just put into the piles. So the piles look like index tab with sticky for the topic, sheet of paper explaining the concept, ream of paper printing out the internet, all of the pages with the related links neatly put into a notebook, pre-printed examples of templates, reports, etc. We did have a printing unit off-site, so major jobs were printed there. Thus, we did not have that many copiers in the building, 1 per floor. And yes, before you ask, my boss could have asked the copy unit to do the work, but the copy unit would only print things that were already in a pre-approved PDF format. They would not have printed the internet for my boss. Yes, my boss kept her job. She was promoted soon after from being the group manager of about 15 people to being the deputy chief of a division of several hundred people. Yes, I worked at the same job, technical writer, for 30 plus years. First off, I loved what I did. I was good at it. I never wanted to go into management and deal with people headaches myself. Second off, I needed the health insurance and would not have been able to get a private company job because of my underlying handicap. So staying put in the government and doing what I loved worked out well for me. And I was quite effective at my job. I wrote documents that allowed decision makers to understand complex issues and make good decisions. Employees use and protect our facilities, etc. My colleagues respected me and we worked well together. Yes, this is the US federal government, and we did have a very ineffectual union where only a few people were allowed to be bargaining unit members, and the union could have done very little to save my job. Thanks for reading my funny little story. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called BooJuju. It says, you should have filed a protest through the OPM. Any disciplinary action received based on complying with written instructions would likely be overturned. If she persisted with further actions against you, you could then file a grievance and state you were being subjected to a hostile work environment and request reassignment to a different group or organization. Your HR department did you a big disservice by not instructing you of your rights as a government employee. As long as you had no previous write-ups and your past assessments were good, you probably would have won your case. OP responded to this one and said, yeah, but the only discipline was that I could not get a performance bonus that year, $1,000 at stake, big whoop, so I just shrugged it off. Okay, apparently, and I just learned this, I'm working in the wrong industry because I can't look at $1,000 and go, big whoop. I look at $1,000 and go, that's a lot of money. Can I have that, please? If you think about it, OP probably actually spent around that amount in paper and toner alone, because 30,000 sheets of paper would be about $700 Canadian, plus the toner. Yeah, I could see that going over $1,000 easily. This story comes to us from Signal, Heavy Metal Finance. Let's jump right in. Quite a few years ago now, in the late 1990s and very early on in my career, I used to work for a company that helped customers of certain retail stores manage their finances. My role was as a sort of compliance officer, ensuring that the staff who dealt with the customers were following the rules. If they messed it up, it was a big problem and could potentially impact the customer's credit score, resulting in them defaulting on payments and even end up in court. I took my job pretty seriously. The company was not particularly well run from a management perspective. They'd made a lot of money very quickly and had grown from a handful of people in a garage to a 4-story office building in the CBD within the space of a year and a half. There wasn't a great deal in the way of policy or process framework, so I had to develop a lot of the tools to do my job myself. This involved some programming, a basic system to track what I was doing, link to the extensive rule set, and automate some of the more tedious reporting. It would also track how long I was spending on each task, so that I could see about which elements I could streamline. Now, I was quite proud of this system and called it Hendrix, as I am a massive Jimi Hendrix fan, and it used to play about 5 seconds of the instrumental version of Little Wing when it started up. As I had my own little room covered, this never used to annoy anyone. I can geek out about that type of stuff. At this point, before corporate IT became rather more rigid, I used to write a lot of my own tools. I was the only person who was using Hendrix, and it was a tool just for me. My manager, the archetypal middle manager, decided that because it allowed you to quickly reference which rules applied to which situation, it should be rolled out to all staff. Now, I had previously considered this, but I argued that I couldn't guarantee that it would be fit for the task because I designed it for my own use, and I'd need to make some changes first. But he rolled it out anyway without me even getting a chance to tweak it. He got a Team Player of the Week award for introducing a tool to make life easier for frontline staff. In his acceptance speech, this was a big rah-rah thing each week for the company. He thanked his manager. I didn't even get a mention. Then, 2 weeks later, he realized that I'd been recording how long I had been working on certain tasks within the program. Now, I'd realized fairly quickly that this part of the program was a little too detailed, and I didn't really care too much about every single task within each incident. So I just used it to record how long I spent on the entire incident, rather than each part of the incident. My manager invited me to a meeting about Hendrix, no details given, and I attended thinking it was going to be a list of requested features, only to find out that the head of HR was there and I was being given a written warning for falsifying timekeeping. Because each customer interaction was a certain length, my manager had decided that this was what I should be recording, and not how long I was spending listening to, analyzing, checking, and reporting on the interaction. Remember, this is a tool that I had designed for my own use, and it was not being used to calculate how much I was being paid, or whether I was doing enough work during the day or not. There was nothing in place for that at all. I had not made the records public. He'd found them in a file on the server that only he and I had access to. Nobody else was supposed to even have this tool. I argued this and was told that it wasn't up to me, and I was getting a warning regardless. It got really quite heated and unpleasant, though I got the impression that the head of HR was a little embarrassed about the whole thing. They said, however, that if I wanted to consult a lawyer, I was quite within my rights to do so. It was at this point that I was rather smugly able to state that I would get 2 lawyers there within the hour, as both my parents were practicing, and my mother was, in point of fact, an employment lawyer. Suddenly, there was a completely different attitude from my manager. there was an attempt to roll back the issue and turn it into a suggestion that perhaps I should be a bit more careful with my timekeeping in the future. But I was pretty angry at this point. I pointed out that my software had been rolled out to all staff against my wishes. I was told that this wasn't up to me as it was company intellectual property, until I advised them that I'd written it in my own time, at home, on my own computer. I was plugging into the official government rule set and not the corporate intranet one. I had not confirmed it fit for general release at all. I had received a special dispensation from IT to install it on a single work computer, mine, and I would require them to pay a license fee for anything beyond this. To be fair, this would have been tied up in court for a long time, and I've got no idea whether I'd have been successful. So in the end, I relented. If they wanted to use Hendrix, well, I guess they could. I just made sure that Little Wing would play for 1 second longer on startup for every week the software was in use. Then I quit the following Monday and was working for another company by the Monday after that. 3 or 4 months later, I got a call from my former manager asking to come fix the problems with my software. He hung up when I quoted him my consultant fees. I don't know why IT weren't able to figure it out. It was just a setting in a text file, not at all hard to find. A friend who remained in the company tells me they continued to use Hendrix for a whole year. The mornings in the call center were apparently horrifying, with Little Wing playing for around a minute every time someone started a new shift. Sometimes it would play on 20 computers at once, few seconds apart, on tinny PC speakers that were unable, due to IT, to mute. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Gemini27. It says, "Man, I'd have had the program flash up a screen detailing who had created it, that it was most definitely not company property, and they weren't licensed to have it, and the amount of licensing fees which were accumulating and the company had failed to pay for the entire increasing time the song played." I feel like there's many more things that OP could have done to be very maliciously compliant with this company. Like, before they left, they could have changed the song to, oh, I don't know, "Take this job and shove it." One thing's for certain though, I worked in a bunch of call centers, and people who did stuff like this, they went down in history. They were part of the call center folklore, and they'll be talked about until that call center is no more. This story comes to us from Artificer9. Bizarre safety procedures at work cause a hilarious Cobra effect. Let's jump right in. I'm a senior electrical engineer in the industrial sector. I started work at a huge firm a few weeks ago, and right off, my superior detailed what was expected of me every quarter. Among the requirements were 1 safety violation report a month. I thought, okay, I could keep myself from effing up more than once a month. This is a large factory with everything from spinning grinders to steaming corrosives, so obviously OSHA is a big issue here. But this isn't my first rodeo, so to speak. I generally know what I'm doing. So my first month goes by and I keep everything nice and safe. End of month, one-on-one rolls around. Boss makes it clear, to my surprise, that the requirement is for me to file at least 1 safety violation a month. Obviously, I inquired how one could go about controlling safety violations, as they are inherently accidents, and if I had any way to influence their appearance, I would prevent them in the first place. But he just said I need to keep my eyes open, the violations will appear. Fine, I kept my eyes open, but honestly, everything seems perfectly in order. Everyone else in my department were ticking off safety violations one after another, and I was nearing the end of month 2 with nothing. I would go on walks looking for safety infringements instead of working. Something seemed off, so I looked into the Safety Violations Report XL, and I was just stupefied. This was a list of the most unbelievably inane infractions I've ever set my eyes upon. I'll give you some examples. Infraction: cabinet door was left open in room. Someone could hit their head. Immediate mitigation: cabinet door closed. Future mitigation: add magnets to cabinet doors. There were countless other esoteric reports like unexplained puddle next to electrical cabinet or stack of cables on floor. I couldn't believe it. These well-educated grown men and women just writing nonsensical safety violations on absolutely anything. I tried approaching one of the guys about it, but he just said to keep my eyes open, the violations will appear. They keep repeating it like it's a mantra and then change the subject. I thought this was ridiculous enough, but then one day a report came in about a ladder missing one of the plastic caps on its legs. Immediate mitigation, plastic cap found elsewhere and secured in its place. Now, I was the last one to use this ladder the day before, and it was perfectly fine, which led me to my conclusion that this man was purposely sabotaging company equipment just so he can fix it and then write a safety violation report. I feel like I'm in an episode of The Office. Everyone I approach about this just brushes it off. Maybe it's because I'm the new guy? Anyway, I couldn't show up to my second monthly evaluation sans safety report, so I went to a random grounding cable, slightly unfastened the bolt, took a picture, and then fastened it back in place. I wrote a report about it, and the OSHA guy commended me in person about my vigilance. Is this a department-wide grift? Are the managers unaware of this farce, or are they playing along? Usually, this would be a huge red flag, but everyone is otherwise really nice, and the pay is great. Anyway, ideas as to what I should sabotage next month are welcome. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Ambitious Misgivings. It says, secondary container labels is usually a super easy catch. Is it an unlabeled container with something in it? If it's not in the immediate control of the person who filled it, violation. Was the same unlabeled container used for more than a single shift? Violation. Are they illegible and need to be reprinted? Violation. If you have any type of material that gets poured from a manufacturer's container into another container, it applies. Have fun. OP responded to this comment with, wow, that's gold. I'm set for this quarter. I completely understand the company in this case wanting the employees to be vigilant about safety violations, but this is not the way to do it. At this point, these employees aren't really looking for violations, they're just looking for a way to get around this requirement. I'm willing to bet that they don't even actively look for violations, they just have a set list of things that they can go, make it look like it was a violation, then fix it and submit their report. However, if OP uses the suggestion from the commenter, they actually will be finding violations that actually could improve that company's safety. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.